Greetings, kindred. I am Voivode Maquette. This is my companion in darkness, Doulahan, and welcome to our world of darkness, where it's Metaflop Monday. So, get yourself comfortable, pour yourself a glass of something red, and let's discuss this possibly controversial topic in Vampire the Masquerade and the world of darkness as a whole. A member of our community writes, "Speaking of the Daughters of Cacophony, because we were, I actually have a suggestion for your Metaflop Monday. I'd be interested in your thoughts about gender-restricted clans and bloodlines. You mentioned the Sons of Discord, which were actually not canon, but were that popular among fans that they were summoned into canon, much like the pointy teeth of the Nagaraja, until they are all declared destroyed by the main clan. I think about the Daughters of Cacophony, the Lamia, the Aramains, and to a minor extent clans like the Banu Hakim, which were claimed to be nearly exclusively male, until they realized what sexist and racist BS that was. And maybe there are more I don't recall right now. Personally, I tend to be the one who jumps if he hears the word exclusive or almost exclusively and yells, 'I want to make the exception.' I think there are always at least one exception, and players are always allowed to be the exception. If the story is good, it might be worth a video. And I have to completely agree, because there are a lot of situations where there are exclusivity in the world of darkness that I've noticed. I was unaware that the Sons of Discord were not canon until their thoughts were brought in. When I was introduced to the concept of the Sons of Discord, it was on a homebrew style situation. We didn't have a group of kindred singers or anything like that. We had a very interesting subsect, almost like almost as if the Catif had all gathered together and joined to create a club. The Sons of Discord in the game that I originally played in, where I had heard of them, reminded me of the British mod movement, where they dressed almost like an 80s revamp on vampires, and they all drove around on mopeds. And it sounds ridiculous, and it was. I'm not going to say that it wasn't. But it was an interesting little thing to see this group of vampires that were kind of a clan, kind of were not. I was also unaware, and I'm not too familiar with V20, so possibly that is a thing, of them being completely destroyed by the Daughters of Cacophony, but I do understand that they were being hunted down. The third character that I ever brought into a game was in fact a Son of Discord. And I wrote him up the way I thought he should be, making him so much more older than the Daughters of Cacophony actually were. And I have, as of then, retconned his origin story and changed him around a little bit. In fact, after a little while, I decided when I was retiring specific characters that I was going to write deaths for them. Because I just didn't seem to die very often in Vampire the Masquerade, and I wanted to have a level of finality to specific characters. And his end was probably one of the most moving that I feel that I wrote, and is actually one of the most emotional stories that I fall back on things that I personally have penned. The fact that they were brought in to canon due to popularity of basically a homebrew bloodline that took on so much popularity that it spread to the point where the writers decided to throw it in there is a very interesting thing. But it does touch on the topic of exclusivity, and that being that the Daughters of Cacophony are in fact the Daughters of Cacophony. They are an exclusively female bloodline. We do not have them yet in V5. I did find a very beautifully written homebrew version of Daughters of Cacophony as a bloodline lore sheet on the website wordsofdarkness.com, I believe. And I am considering doing a video on them because I like the way that they were written up, and I think that it was beautifully executed. So if anybody is a moderator or a writer for Words of Darkness that watches this, I just want you to know how amazing I think that write-up was. Other clans being of exclusivity, being like the Aramains and the Lamia, which SP also mentioned. There's a lot of cultural overlap on what that is, and I understand why people would want to be the exclusive, or why they would want to be the one exception. SP completely understand that. I personally have wanted to play the one exception. When it comes to clans like the Daughters of Cacophony, though, you're looking at something that is so minuscule that being the exception to the exception is a little derivative. In my opinion, I think that the Daughters of Cacophony really should be more open. I do like the website that I was just discussing. The bloodline is actually marked down as Daughters of the Choir, which I enjoy, but I think I would actually change it to Children of the Choir, making it so that you could have the Daughters of Cacophony and the Sons of Discord within that same branch, and maybe get rid of the whole "we want to kill you because of your gender" situation. I can understand why that's there, and I also do not care if they were specifically going to be the Daughters of Cacophony, due to the fact that the cultural aspects of it do play into consideration. Now, if they said, oh, Sons of Discord are all castrata, or something like that, where the Daughters of Cacophony consider them female in that respect, I could understand that. But what I'm getting at about cultural bias when it comes to gender exclusivity is very easily seen in clans such as the Giovanni and the Ravno, and the Banu Hakim. These are situations where the culture where those vampires are considered to be the most prevalent tend to be more male dominated. And when I say that, I'm not even meaning that females don't have their roles. I'm saying that in the beginning of putting together Vampire the Masquerade, our White Wolf team was trying to make the vampires more obviously culturally separated. They were trying to make them more segregated by culture. And that's very obvious to see, where the Tzimisce come from Eastern Europe. The Ventrue are from Germany. The Toreador are obviously meant to be fitting into the French area. The Gangrel are more of a Nordic bent. The Bruja are more Grecian. Like, you can see just by looking at it that those bloodlines, those clans, are actually meant to be more spread out and diverse on the map, and that clans tended to develop their personality for what they are given where they were from. The Banu Hakim have become more accepting in the later nights of females because of characters such as Fatima El Fakwari, and I apologize if I butchered that name, but Fatima is the Assamite that people go to. She's actually considered more of in a leadership role when you look at the lore sheets, and if you read through the novels, which if you read the Assamite novel, she's on the cover. But that Middle Eastern culture would put more emphasis on males being expected to be in that power structure. Giovanni the same way. It's not that the women had less respect, but when it came to running business, which is what vampirism was to the clan originally, Giovanni are going to embrace strictly males. In fact, if you look at it, the older information on the Giovanni says that the men had to be over 50 years old and had a full beard to be brought into the clan. Oh, which is very interesting because it does tie into that cultural role of lord of the household, or when you're looking into the classical crime mafioso boss, you don't hear of many female dons. So that's where that comes into play. The are the same way, but they have a different cultural leaning on it. And it's more of a spiritual aspect, is that you don't damn a female to that lifestyle. You don't remove a female from the wheel of reincarnation. And I don't know if you want to take that as removing them from the ability to play Ravno, or if you want to look at that more as they have a healthier respect for women than the other clans. I'm not that much of an expert on the practices of the gypsy culture, but as you can see, especially with the Ravno, things have highly changed, because when you hear the word gypsy, it can be considered as a racial slur. So they've switched it around, and you can actually see over time the evolution of Clan Ravno, where they have gone more of they've gone from being the quote unquote gypsy line, which were marked as thieves and tricksters, to falling more onto that trickster line, dropping the gypsy epitaph altogether and moving into more Hindu light, and then even now, as time has gone by, dropping that even further and becoming a more universal trickster embodiment, where you have individuals who embrace the Monkey King from Hindu mythology, to Loki from Norse paganism, to Native American practices of fox and coyote. And the growth is interesting, especially when it comes to a clan such as the Ravno, due to the fact that they have been through so many horrible, horrible occurrences in their existence. They were nearly wiped off the map in 1999 due to the Week of Nightmares. They were hunted down to nearly extinction. They have been completely removed from cities, and the other clans have turned their back on them. And it really does show the cultural impact and how much understanding and acceptance has come about now that they are considered the not just the tricksters, but also the messengers between cities and between sects. The idea that they are the vampires of the crossroads and can be represented more on the lines of Loki and Hermes and Mercury and other deities that were considered tricksters and messengers is amazing. I love the fact that they do that. The Lamia have gone through dramatic changes as well. Now that they are the Lamia Gorgon bloodlines that you'll find in the Cult of the Blood Gods book, where they are now a part of the Hecata again. They're no longer just a long dead bodyguards that were exclusively women for the Cappadocians. I think they are more leaning to the fact that they are still supposed to be more women, but I don't think there's anything that says exclusively that they have to be. I do see them being more women than men, due to the fact that the Lamia are based on the vampires of Grecian mythology that were exclusively women. They are succubus, and the males will be incubus. So the Lamia, being the worshippers and the daughters of Lilith, it makes a lot of sense for them to be almost exclusively female, if not completely exclusively female, because Lilith has been screwed over by men so many times, even if she has sympathizers. Let's just go ahead and say that we'll throw a handful of Lamia in as males. Not only is it going to be harder for them to raise through the ranks of that exclusive bloodline, if Lilith came back, there's a good chance she'd just kill them all. And there is so much equality that can be offered to that kind of situation when you're dealing with a figure like Lilith, especially in the context of Vampire the Masquerade. If you've done any research at all on Lilith, the true mythological figure from Judeo-Christian myth, and even falling into some pagan practices, Lilith is the queen feminist and does not put up with the shenanigans of male. And given the storyline involving the fact that she was cursed by God, spurned by Adam, screwed over by Cain, it's not unusual to think that that might be a thing. Even if you did decide that other clans were going to be open, the Lamia are one of those that I do feel, given their backstory, without getting a full rewrite of the clan and completely changing who those vampires are in general, the Lamia probably should stay majority female and maybe allow individuals who are more closer to homosexual to join if they were going to. It really depends on your outlook. And mine, if you really want to play a Lamia and you're male, why not extend your thought process on that and play a woman? I had a friend named Sean a few years ago who attended a game that I ran, and then after he played with me for a little while, he decided to start going to other games that I would attend, because I used to game 3 nights a week because I had no life. Not true. I had a very beautiful budding life. However, I did have some free time, so I used to game 3 nights a week. One of the games that I attended was and I've mentioned this recently in the past, is the Chronicles of Poor Capuchin, where he wished to play a Cappadocian, but he played a woman. He wasn't playing Lamia. He just wanted to play a woman, and he did so well. The funny thing was that people actually started to think he was a woman, since he wore a veil and he was a rather slim-figured individual. And seriously, hours of play would go by. I think we played for like 4 to 5 hours. And then after game came up, guys started walking up and asking for his number. And he took off the veil and he's like, I don't really think you want it. And it was great. It was great. And I've never personally played a PC. I've never played the PC female, but I do represent plenty of females in my NPCs, and I've never had anyone have issues coming up and telling me that they couldn't see me in that light. And I've got a full beard most of the time. Extend it for yourself, and I think you might be out there. And the same thing with the Lamia goes with the Aramains. This is a group of individuals who have histories with men. And that's another thing. This is a modern take on what's wrong here, is that when you're dealing with the Aramains, you're dealing with women who have been abused horribly. And I don't see them taking in many males. Now, the exception I could see is if a woman escaped and was somehow able to hide the fact that she had a son, a child, from the Sabbat after they took her in, because the Aramains are typically an exclusively Sabbat bloodline of Gangrel. I can see that. But that also goes to show, would the Aramain community teach a male child spiritus and the like? Or would a male Aramain get Protean due to the fact that it's already in their blood? Would they default to being a standard Gangrel? I don't know, and that's up to storyteller interpretation. And actually, I would like to know if anybody thinks that way, one way or the other. But I do have a hard time seeing the idea of the Aramains, much as the Liliths, especially since It's a story completely wrapped around the concept of male dominant abuse. Um, and again, anybody can do anything that they want to, but I can understand why White Wolf wrote things the way that they did. The majority of the clans in Vampire the Masquerade don't tend to have a theory based on sexism, which is something that's pretty interesting. You might have the random Ventru or Toreador or Bruja who says, oh, they obviously can't do anything better because they're women or something like that. But for the most part, once they're embraced, vampires tend to go, we're not human, therefore we don't have a sex. I push off the fact that I am more male. I am obviously more male dominant. Or a woman, for the most part, may go, I am obviously able to use my womanly wiles to get what I want here. But when you look at things, when you look at individuals like Patricia Bolenbrook, Tyler, one of the most fearsome vampires, Clan Bruja, destruction of elders, general in the Anarch movements, Patricia Bolenbrook is Tyler. She took the name of a man she loved, but I've used her with people who do not know the story. People who are playing neonates that I did not feel the need to fill in Tyler's story. And I'll build her up for months, and when she finally shows up, they're like, oh, you're a woman. And that blows their damn mind. And for the majority of vampiric society, it does not matter if you are male or female. The Tzimisce, for instance, have a fluidity about them to be able to do whatever they want to do. They are, in fact, the trans vampire. They can be masculine, they can be feminine. It depends on how they're feeling that day. They can be neither. They are androgyny given form. No vampire is truly bound to gender roles, but some cultures are. I'm not stating whether or not that's right or wrong. That is not my place to say. But I can see why certain groups do tend to have a higher male count than female count. And the World of Darkness team themselves, White Wolf or whatever you want to call them, I don't know. Are they still White Wolf? Will somebody please answer this damn question for me? Is it still White Wolf? Because I heard that it wasn't, and I just don't want to be wrong anymore. The World of Darkness team put a lot of effort into making things more PC. And I respect them for that. Female Assamites have become more common, or Banu Hakim. Female Banu Hakim have become more common. Female Ravno are the regular. The Sons of Discord were accepted, but then hunted down, apparently. The World of Darkness is doing its damnedest to be PC, but the world we live in is not 100% PC either. If you have individuals who grow up in a strongly male-dominated area, there's going to be more male kindred. I tend to have, and this is an out-of-character basis, I tend to have one or two, if I'm lucky, female players in my games. At the highest point of player count I've ever had was 35 players in a game that I was running. And I can remember about 5 women who played in them. One of them, sadly, I had to tell to go home because she was too young to be playing in my games. And I have typically a strict 18 and up rule, and I found out she was 17, so I had to send her on her way. And I told her to come back when she was old enough in a couple months, but she decided not to. She was insulted by the fact that I was trying to keep her safe. Either way, with the way that the world is going, with male, female, sexuality, gender roles, the world is changing. the world of darkness is going to change too. Because the individuals who are being embraced into the clans in the current Knights are the individuals who are going through this in the world. The Hecata are going to become more female prevalent, whether that's the Giovanni, the Lamia, the Harbingers of Eshir, who the hell knows? The Banu Hakim are going to become more open. More and more Western ideals are going to come in and indoctrinate themselves into that Eastern culture. The exclusivity of things like that is a very interesting and touchy topic. I personally have not had to deal with it much because no one's really confronted me with it. I've had a few individuals who have come up to me and said that they wanted to play something specific and have already had a commonplace concept for the character in mind. Men who wanted to play women, women who wanted to play men, or even I've had one or two individuals who have come in to play something completely androgynous. Gender exclusivity is something that should be acknowledged in Vampire the Masquerade's past. But I do believe that as the vampires continue on, the elders are gone, neonates are starting to infiltrate into the society so deeply that they're not going to not be able to bring in their mortal ideals. And the elders that are around are just going to be, well, we're not human anyway, so why does it fucking matter? That doesn't really solve the Lilith issue that I mentioned, though, now does it? Who knows? We might have to have a very interesting, offensive storyline at some point. And that's what Vampire the Masquerade is for. To push the boundaries of what's offensive and what's acceptable. To tell a story. To make sure everyone has fun, but to make sure everybody thinks. Vampire the Masquerade could be leading into some pretty interesting areas when it comes to that kind of thing. I am interested on this side thing here. I am interested on this whole Nagaraja didn't have pointy teeth until blah. That's until it became popular. There are other things like that, such as the Kiasid glowing blue in the moonlight, or the true Bruja having pointed ears. Things like that are very interesting. I wonder exactly what other things came from more popular understanding or homebrew stuff that just kind of took control of the situation. The Banu Hakim, to my understanding, as they feed, as they age, they grow darker and darker. I wonder if that's something that was brought on by popularity, or if that was something intended. Either way, I don't think there's very much more to say about that. But I am very interested in knowing your thoughts on all of it, on the gender equality of Vampire the Masquerade. We have organizations in Werewolf like the Black Furies, which are supposed to be exclusively women. I do understand that they do have a tendency of adopting male outcasts that are metis and things like that, but the tribe as a whole is supposed to be female. Those of you who play Werewolf, is this a issue on that side as well? Is there problems like this in the mage community or the fae community? Can't help but wonder if the species in the world of darkness that has to worry the least about gender roles, vampire, is the only one that's truly bound by that situation. Well, that being said, I am Voivode Maquettes. This is my companion Doulahan. And this has been Metaplot Monday for Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition in the World of Darkness. in our world of darkness. Good evening.